So, can a single meal actually reshape the future of artificial intelligence? It sounds like a big claim, right? But that was the core question at the heart of the 2025 Food Indaba. It was a 2-week program of events all about the intersection of African food systems and AI. And to really get why this question is so urgent, you have to look at a couple of pretty shocking numbers.
Just 5%. Think about that. Of all the data that fuels the big AI models we all hear about, like ChatGPT, only 5% of it is even about the entire continent of Africa.
And believe it or not, it gets worse. Out of that tiny 5% slice, a minuscule 3% is actually generated by Africans. What that means is we have a massive, massive blind spot in the technology that is literally shaping all of our futures. So, we're talking about what's called the African data deficit. And this isn't just some technical problem, it's really fundamental. It means that these AI systems are just biased from the get-go. They don't have the context, the nuance, or any real understanding of African realities and knowledge. And the thing is, this is a problem we have to deal with now. AI expert Vukosi Marvate from the University of Pretoria puts it perfectly. He says the more we wait to deal with these challenges, the more expensive it becomes. It's like having a high-interest credit card loan. The debt just keeps growing. Okay, so how do you even begin to tackle a challenge this huge? Well, the 2025 Food Indaba came up with a pretty creative and honestly tangible answer. You start with food. Now, this whole program was a huge collaboration. It was produced by the South African Urban Food and Farming Trust, and they had key funders on board, the V&A Waterfront, the Center of Excellence in Food Security, and the European Union. And they all came together with this shared goal to figure out how food itself could help close that data gap. And their strategy for doing this was really interesting. See, instead of putting on one giant anonymous conference, they focused on creating these really intimate dialogues, but with a deliberately expansive reach. So over the course of 2 weeks, they held 24 separate events. We're talking everything from walking tours to chef summits, and really importantly, a major AI in the food system conference that brought together some of the continent's leading thinkers on this exact topic. And get this, in total, only 594 people actually attended these events in person. But that small number was totally on purpose. It was all about creating spaces where people could have deep, real conversations. But the reach of those conversations, well, that was anything but small. Because through a dedicated media campaign, the ideas and conversations that started in those small rooms reached a massive audience of over 120 million people. That's the expansive reach part of the plan. And you can see this model is really working. That media reach of 120 million is almost double what it was for the Food Indaba in 2024. That's some serious growth in getting these critical conversations out there. Okay, but this whole program wasn't just about talking. It was about doing. It was about generating authentic African data. Basically, it was about Africa teaching AI what it needs to know. A perfect example of this was the opening dinner by Chef Vusi Ndlovu. He created something called a jollof cocktail, a total reimagining of the classic West African rice dish. See, this wasn't about asking AI for a recipe. This was Africa showing AI how we innovate, how we create. And the impact on people was just profound. One person who was there said, "It was my first time ever experiencing a dish where I feel represented and part of it." Now that is the kind of cultural data that AI completely misses. And another guest really hit the nail on the head. They said the African experience has a lot to teach AI, though, and that just perfectly sums up the whole idea. The conversation is shifting from what AI can do for Africa to what Africa can do for AI. And you can actually measure this shift in perspective. Before the dinner, 100% of the guests we surveyed said they felt both concerned and excited about AI. But look at what happened after. A full third of them shifted to being purely excited. It just goes to show how a real, tangible cultural experience can change how we feel about technology. This forward-thinking approach wasn't just for the adults either. It was also about the next generation. They held a sold-out workshop called Hack the Kitchen, where kids got to explore the science of flavor using indigenous knowledge to make their own ice cream. And this quote from one of the kids just says it all. "No longer going to buy ice cream, we will just make it." I mean, that's empowerment right there. It's about building that ability to create new knowledge right from the ground up. So let's pull all this together. What does it all mean?
Well, the program draws this incredibly powerful line connecting food, data, and all of our futures. And here's the core insight, which food systems researcher Empo Primus talked about. Our food is more than just sustenance. It's a living library of indigenous knowledge. Every single recipe, every tradition, that's a unique data point. It represents our culture, our identity, and our history. Entrepreneur Miles Hubeka puts it so powerfully. When we don't see our food, we don't see ourselves. And Chef Carl Van Roen really builds on that, saying that when we document our heritage, we're laying the groundwork for future innovation. We're claiming our space in this new digital world. So this brings us to a final question. And it's not just for the experts, it's for all of us. If our food is our data, what story are we going to tell the world?